We're so glad you're here with us on CNTV. I'm Brad Claunch along with Quinn Tran. February is designated as American Heart Month. We focus on how to improve our cardiovascular health.
How do we start our heart health journey? And what does a heart-healthy diet look like? Let's ask Adrienne Jacobs with Chickasaw Nation Nutrition Services.
Most people don't like to keep food logs, but if you can, just a day or two on a normal week or whatever a normal day would look like, just kind of track and see what you're typically eating. And sometimes from that, something will jump out. You'll be like, oh, maybe I should drink more water, or I don't eat any fruits. Maybe I should add a fruit at breakfast time. Or you'll usually find some little something, or you'll see, wow, I didn't realize I was eating 3,000 calories in a day. You know, these little bites here and there really add up. So that's my first suggestion, is take a step back and really assess kind of where you are. That way you know where you're starting and know where you can make some adjustments.
We know that we could eat more fruits and vegetables. How much are we talking about that is the right amount for us?
It depends on kind of your age, your gender, height, weight. Different factors play into the exact amount, but usually around 2 cups of fruits and 2 cups of vegetables. If you want to just have a general rule of thumb, that's usually a pretty good amount for the day. Most of my clients and most Americans aren't eating any. Sometimes in a whole day, they go without having any fruits or vegetables. So in my experience, if you tell them to go from none to 4 to 5 servings a day, they're like overwhelmed. So I always say, add a fruit at breakfast, or what I kind of assess with them, what meal would you be able to add something like that, and start there. Or add a fruit at every meal, or fruit or vegetable at every meal. Just aim to do that. And that kind of gets them in the right direction versus thinking I have to eat all of this extra food and how do I do this? So you start kind of small. And once you get used to, say it's at breakfast, say I'm going to eat an apple for breakfast with my breakfast every day. And you get kind of used to that. Then at lunchtime, you could be like, oh, I might add a salad in with my sandwich, or I might add some green beans, or whatever it might be. Start small and then build on that as you get used to the small goals that you set.
What's your advice on carbs, things like pasta, rice, bread?
Carbs sometimes get a bad reputation because that's kind of some of the fad diets is, take away the carbs. That's how you lose the most weight. And it's kind of twofold, the reason why you lose weight. Most of us are what I call carbaholics. We love carbs. We eat tons of bread. We eat tons of sweets. We eat tons of all things full of carbs. And so, yes, when you cut back on those, yes, you're going to lose weight because you're cutting calories. But also, carbohydrates hold water in our body. They help us stay hydrated in our muscles and things like that. So when you cut carbohydrate out, you also lose a lot of water weight. So that's sometimes why people see these 15 to 20 pound weight loss in a week, and it's water weight. It's not necessarily the fat loss. So I am definitely not anti-carbohydrate. Carbohydrate is our primary source of brain fuel. That's what our brain prefers to function and think clearly. So I always tell my kids when I'm talking to them, like in different classroom settings, if it's a big test day or you're really needing to focus, carbohydrates are your brain's preferred fuel source. And so if your body has carbohydrate, you can think more clearly and recall things easier when you've studied for a test. So carbohydrates, like I said, are not the enemy. Try to choose whole grain carbohydrates. So that doesn't necessarily mean brown bread is whole grain, because they can add food coloring to make the bread brown. Look at the ingredients and see if the first ingredient says whole wheat or whole oats, whole grain something. Check out those ingredients. And another clue is to look at the fiber content on the nutrition label. If it has more fiber, it's typically going to be a whole grain. Again, not always the case, because if you've ever checked out Fruit Loop cereals, they have fortified that cereal with fiber. So It's not that natural whole grain fiber that really is healthy for your body. So fiber can be a good clue, but it's not the solid, yes, this is a high fiber source or a whole grain source. The one whole grain snack that I love and I promote to all people is popcorn. It is a tremendous snack versus eating chips because popcorn is not fried. And if you don't buy, the butter lover popcorn and learn to season it, at getfreshcooking.com, we have some different popcorn seasonings. Whether you like spicy or maybe a cheese flavor, different flavors of popcorn seasonings available there to kind of make it a little more enticing. Because I do admit plain popcorn is a little bland, but if you learn how to spice it up a healthy way, it's a tremendous whole grain snack that's very good for your body.
How much meat should we consume?
3 ounces is a portion size of meat. And to give you a better visual of that is if you can picture a deck of cards, that's what a 3 ounce portion size looks like. So it's pretty small. Most gentlemen that I work with, their jaw just drops. And I said that, they're like, I usually get a 10-ounce steak. How am I going to survive on 3 ounces? Start cutting back. If you normally get a 10-ounce steak, go to an 8-ounce steak. And then when you're satisfied with the 8-ounce steak, then cut back to 6 ounces. So slowly cut back. When you're making those small changes towards the ideal size, the 3-ounce portion size, you're moving in the right direction. You're cutting out your calories. You're cutting out the excess fat that you might be getting from those protein sources. So portion control is usually more of I felt like less of a police officer when I teach portion control because I don't have to take foods away from people. I just teach them how to regulate how much they're eating. And that is a very healthy approach to a nice balanced diet.
The Chickasaw Nation has nutrition centers and other services that offer information and support for health and wellness. Explore those programs by visiting the tribe's website.
Next time on CNTV, we'll talk about our sweet tooth. We'll look at how to manage sweets and treats as we try to keep our New Year's resolution of healthy eating. This is something new and fun, the Chikasha Emoji app. The emoji app recently introduced the 2.0 designs reinterpreted through design and cultural framework. The app features Chickasaw language textisms, which are visual shorthand forms of words and phrases. Find the Chikasha Emoji app on Google Play or Apple App Stores. The Chickasaw Nation has programs and resources for people to learn the Chickasaw language. From Rosetta Stone, Chickasaw Community Language classes, to the Chickasaw Basic app, and Youth Speaking Chickasaw Language Club and camps, there's a way for everyone of all ages everywhere to learn.
There's a real power in being able to say something simple like, I'm a Chickasaw, Chikasha, or being able to rattle off and hold a conversation with a native speaker. So the main thing is that we want people to realize that there's power in the language, that it's a gift to us, that we have some obligation, to perpetuate the language in the future. And so for me, what that means is that any given citizen who has any interest in the language at all, when they engage with learning, some of that power will come home for them too.
The Chickasaw Nation Language Revitalization Program began in 2007. Look for language learning resources by visiting chickasaw.net.
Over the past couple of weeks, we've been featuring adult and youth winners of the Anoli Creative Writing Contest. In this episode, meet Ethan Cox, who placed first for his essay. Ethan, your essay is titled My Role as a Chickasaw in Mainstream Society. Tell us about your writing piece.
So this essay discusses things that I've experienced as a tribal citizen who a lot of people would say doesn't really look the part. Since I was a child, all the way even up now into adulthood, every once in a while, I've encountered and still encounter people who might question my citizenship as a Chickasaw citizen. And so what this essay discusses is that even though I may not look the part to some people, it's still my identity, and it's something that's still very special to me. And so I discuss ways that I can and others can be Chickasaw citizens through their actions and through their community and through the way that they serve those around them. Even though I'm light-skinned or blonde hair, blue eyes, whatever, I can still contribute to this tribe, and I still have things that I can give back because this tribe has given me so much.
I enjoy reading the part that you share when you were 16 and took a trip to Washington, D.C. For a conference with other teenagers, other high schoolers, and that they question you. Some boys who you roomed with from the East Coast questioned whether you were Native American Indian or not. And I love this line. Unfortunately, I had adopted the easy notion that simply having been issued a certificate degree of Indian blood meant that I was, in every sense of the word, a Native American. And then worse, my identity was questioned by others and myself because my appearance did not match the phenotype created by non-natives. I was hurt.
I'd never really pondered, what does it mean to be Chickasaw? And so the first time that these others, teenagers my age at the time brought it up, it just kind of shocked me, kind of hit me like, maybe I'm not Chickasaw. Maybe these kids, the first time that I've been outside of Oklahoma and someone's finally questioned it, I thought maybe this whole time I've been living a lie and this isn't who I am. And so it hurt as a 16-year-old not knowing how to respond to that. Physically, I do not look Chickasaw. And so they kind of asked me some other things like, well, if you don't look the part, can you at least, speak the part? Can you tell us a little bit about your culture? And I knew no language at the time, had no Chickasaw vocabulary. I could tell them a couple of very basic, like children's type stories. Other than that, sadly, I didn't have a whole lot of information to share with them.
Did that do something to you to maybe create a sense of, I'm going to go learn more about my heritage and my tribe and myself?
Yes, absolutely. After I got past the part of being hurt, I said, okay, how can I make sure that this doesn't happen again? Because after I stopped and reflected, I said, no, I don't care what this kid said or think. I am Chickasaw. But if I ever run into this situation again, I want to be prepared for it. I want to be able to share this confidence, this knowledge with my family and friends who might also be experiencing similar things. And so I began studying as much as I could, very limited resources at the time that I was in high school. I would speak to my father, my grandmother, just picking their brains for what little bit of knowledge that they had of it. We began going to powwows and other cultural events just to try to learn more about who we are. And it continued all the way through, all the way into college. I was fortunate enough to attend university, and I got my degree in writing, but my minor was in Native Studies.
Those of us who enjoy creative writing can credit someone for inspiring us to write. Who inspired you? Who was your encourager?
I'm glad you asked that. Going back to my high school years, I was not really concerned with writing or the, literature, any of the arts really. I was more of a math and science type of guy. Played a lot of sports and was really focused on that. And I had a really good relationship with one of my coaches, one of my football coaches. And it was my senior year. And he asked me, he said, hey, Ethan, you should join this creative writing class I had. I kind of laughed at him and was like, no, that's not my thing. Writing, especially like poetry and the sorts of things that he was wanting me to do. And he kind of kept pestering me until I finally said, okay, I'll take this class. It'll be an easy elective, whatever. Coach Hayes introduced poetry and short fiction and these sorts of things to me in ways that my previous English or writing teachers had never done before. He showed me that there is a form of writing or at least a form of literature for people to read for everyone. I find lots of joy in writing, but it's kind of a dual-edged sword. One thing that I've learned while writing is that as much work and as hard as it can be during the process, all of that hard work and everything else feels like nothing once it's complete. And so I always tell myself, like, this is difficult right now, but think of how happy and how much joy this will bring once it's complete. And so that's what really keeps me on course to finish my works.
Congratulations to Ethan. The Anoli Creative Writing Contest has categories in essay, poetry, and short story. If you love creative writing, draft some of your work now.
We'll let you know in the coming months about the deadline to submit entries for the next competition. Well, that's all the time we have for this episode of CNTV. Quinn and I will see you next time.